Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. Thank you for joining the webinar today. I know we're right at 1 o'clock, and I want to give everyone a chance to get logged in right before we get started. So let's give everyone about 2 minutes to join. In the meantime, I'm going to launch a poll. We would love to get your answers for this question. So, one of the things we're trying to find out is if this is the first time you've joined one of our webinars or our events, or been to any one of our other presentations or workshops. So, please feel free while we're waiting for everyone to jump onto the webinar. Please submit your answers to our poll. I would greatly appreciate it. And let's get everyone again 1 more minute to join. And in the meantime, please take our poll. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining the webinar today. My name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, also known as the DFPI. Today's webinar is going to be on protecting yourself from investment scams. Thank you for your responses to our poll. It's very important to us to find out how many people are returning, how many people are new, and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll out real quick. And again, thank you so much for your responses. All right, so gonna just jump right into it. A little bit of disclaimer: your cameras and microphones have been turned off for this webinar, but if you do have any questions, please submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature. I do have a dedicated time at the very end to answer your questions. I'm going to answer them as best as I can. A number of you actually submitted questions via email, so I'm going to go ahead and answer those questions as well. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenters. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the DFPI. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not legal or financial advice. And for more information, or if you would like a copy of these slides, although I will be sending a copy of these slides to everyone who registered for the webinar, as well as a link to the webinar's recording to everyone who registered. But if you would like us to do a presentation or workshop wherever you're at to your communities, please feel free to email my team. My team is spread all across California, and we answer all inquiries through this inbox. It is the email address is outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Okay. Quickly, just a recap of who the DFPI is. Who are we? What is our role? What do we do? We are California's financial regulator. Our purpose is to maintain a fair, healthy, and trusted financial marketplace for all Californians. We do this through regulating and enforcing a variety of financial laws on financial services, products, and professionals all throughout the state. And then, of course, we provide free presentations just like this, webinars, in-person events, workshops. We do it all throughout California, and we do this to inform and to protect consumers and to help prevent them from falling prey to frauds and scams. If you want more information, we do have a dedicated section on our website where we publish news articles, consumer alerts, a list of all the other events that we do. Please feel free to check that out. The link to that section of our website is dfpi.ca.gov/consumers. Okay, one more thing. Sorry, a little bit of upkeep here. We just want to remind you that you are protected. The California Consumer Financial Protection Law, also known as the CCFPL, was passed in 2020. It expanded the DFPI's expanded protections for consumers, and it authorized the DFPI to oversee, supervise, and regulate a number of financial services providers and products that were previously unregulated. It also promotes responsible innovation from emerging financial technologies and entrepreneurs and organizations. And it gives us, the DFPI's outreach team, the ability to go out there and provide workshops, presentations to vulnerable communities. To learn more, we have a dedicated section on our website, which you can learn all about the law that was passed and how it helps protect consumers. The link to it is dfpi.ca.gov/ccfpl. Okay. First, I want to just talk about some investment scam statistics. These come from the FBI's 2025, that's last year. So the FBI's IC3, which is their Internet Crime Complaint Center report from 2025, the top 5 cyber-enabled fraud crimes. Extortion was number 1, but right behind it was investment scams, investment crimes. And then, however, the top 5 cyber-enabled fraud crime losses, so how much money was actually lost, by far was investments. So about 8.6, a little more than $8.6 billion lost due to investment scams, investment fraud, that kind of a thing, even though it was the second number of crimes. By the way, this is all reported. We know that many scams and fraud does not get reported. This is only the crimes that were reported to the FBI. So I just want to share that. And the point of this slide is just let you know it's out there. There's a lot of it happening, and you want to be super aware, very, very vigilant of any kind of individual advertisement, whatever, influencer is trying to sell some kind of, or promote some kind of investment out there. The first thing that should come to mind is this a scam? Because it's obviously happening a lot. Okay, so we're going to talk about the most common types of investment scams. I did get an email about another type of investment scam, and I'll talk about that in the Q&A. If you do have any other investment scam that you have a question about, please feel free to put it into the Zoom's Q&A. Happy to talk about it at the very end. But here's kind of the list. I'm going to go deep diving into each one of them, but I'm going to read off the list right now. We have the classic Ponzi and pyramid schemes. We'll talk about what those are. We have imposter scams, which, by the way, is the largest category of scams. We have pump and dump scams, affinity fraud, advanced fee fraud. We have precious metal scams and investor group scams, which is actually, I think I grouped that with the affinity fraud slides. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's talk about pyramid and Ponzi schemes. Kind of the classic types of scams out there. It's been around for a long time. What's the difference between two? Well, a Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors, right? And so typical schemes include high returns with little or no risk, right? Or promises of little or no risk. Also promises of very high returns, unregistered investments, and then, of course, secretive or complex strategies. So someone trying to sell a Ponzi scheme may not give you all of the details on how their whole system works, right? They might say that it's too complex and that you just need to trust them as a professional, and those should all be red flags. On the other hand, a pyramid scheme is an investment fraud where new participants' fees are used to pay existing participants. And then, of course, you're encouraged to recruit more, right? So essentially a pyramid where you can make more money if you recruit more people, and those recruits recruit more people, and then there's fees to join in, right? So that's kind of a big red flag. You're trying to build that pyramid. Typical schemes include no genuine product or service sold, or maybe there is a particular product or services, but they're pushing new participants, right? Or new new members. That's kind of their big focus. Promises of high returns in a short period of time is always a big red flag. And then easy money or passive income. Again, big red flags here. By the way, every one of these slides does have a source for you to do more information, to do more research. And I highly encourage you to do that. We've pulled all this information from very legitimate sources, and we do encourage you to read more, get more information. So I will say this one thing, and I was doing this on another webinar about investing. The victims and individuals who get caught into these schemes usually don't see it, right, and it's mostly because they're so close to what's happening. It's hard for them to take one big step back and kind of see the whole picture. It's difficult, and again, and that's why we should try to blame the victims. Oftentimes, someone who just approaches you and says, "I have this great investment opportunity," all you need to do is recruit one or two members, or all you need to do is invest. We have these high returns, and as more people get in, you're going to get bigger returns or something like that, right? So it's really hard to see as an individual who gets caught into these schemes. But once you kind of take a step back, maybe if you talk to other members, you might be able to start figuring out that these are all the red flags, all the different mechanics of the Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme. So it happens, and I've talked to individuals who have been in these schemes, and it is really hard to see once you're in there or right when it's up in your face. Okay. Let's talk about imposter scams. Again, the largest category of scams, but some of it bleeds into imposter investment scams. So what you want to be aware of is things like fake websites, fake documents, products, companies that don't exist, right? Individuals, scammers may try to use fake websites, fake documents or statements. They might have a particular product that they're saying it's an amazing product they've developed and it's undergoing testing or something like that. They don't actually have a working prototype or something. They may be trying to have you invest in a fake company, right? So they're posing as legitimate websites or having particular documents. Obviously, unlicensed individuals, right? Posing as a legitimate broker or representative from a company. Oftentimes, these scammers use tools like artificial intelligence to create deep fake scams, right? So scammers using AI to impersonate or deep fake news resources. Again, they may use artificial intelligence to create a fake website, maybe for you to log into. They may have AI develop fake documents or statements for you, or maybe a fake account to make it look like your investments are going up, right? So you want to be very aware of these imposter scams, right? Digital asset scams kind of falls into this category, right? Where, again, the scammer is creating a fake or maybe a worthless digital asset or cryptocurrency for you to buy or invest in. Scammers may also use similar sounding or similar spelled digital asset names, right? So if you don't know a lot about let's say cryptocurrencies, and if you don't know how Bitcoin is supposed to be spelled, they may spell it with an extra T or maybe an extra I or maybe a lowercase b or something. And if you don't trade enough, they may be trying to sell you a worthless, misspelled cryptocurrency. And again, they're selling it as a basically real cheap or maybe at a certain price. But when you finally get it, it might actually be not worth anything because it's not the legitimate thing, right? So be very aware of that. There's a lot of type of imposter scams out there, and it's actually very easy to use a website, use an AI to fake a website, to fake news, to fake documents, that kind of a thing, to fake screenshots. It's very easy for AI to do. So you always want to do your research. Let's talk quickly about some pump and dump scams. In a pump and dump scheme, fraudsters spread false or misleading information to pump up the price of the stock, and then they dump the stock, which they sell the stock when their own shares are at that high inflated price, right? So they may spread false or misleading information through channels like social media, chat rooms, email, investment research websites, newsletters, online advertisements. This is the thing. Very often, online websites or even social media platforms, they don't vet the advertisements that are published on their website. They don't vet any kind of posts that goes on their website. So if someone is posting on their social media platform or on their own social media profile, there's no way to make sure it's legitimate. So again, influencers or someone who is claiming to be an investor, a millionaire investor. They may be trying to shill out some kind of stock or other investment, trying to get you to buy low. And then once that price gets up high, they're going to sell out all their own shares, which will decrease the price. And then your investments are worth nothing, right? So be very careful about pump and dump schemes. It happens a lot, and we want you to do your research to make sure you don't get caught up in one of those. Affinity fraud. This is an investment scam that preys upon members of a group, such as like a religious group or an ethnic community, or it could be, elderly professional, other professionals, that kind of thing. These scammers promote affinity scams, or they usually pretend to be, or sometimes they are members of a particular group, right? Maybe you're part of a veteran group, like a veteran bowling team, and one of your members begins to try to sell a particular investment for you, saying that they're making a lot of money. You want to do your research before you just give off your money to these other members, right? The C scammers often enlist the group's leaders to try to give them legitimacy and then spread the word about the scheme. The investor group scams is part of this affinity fraud. That's where the scammers exploit the trust and friendship of a particular group, right? And again, that goes to like maybe it's your hiking group, maybe it's a fishing group you're part of, maybe it is your own veterans group or your book club. It's maybe you're part of like an investor chat room or maybe a social media group, and someone is going in there and just trying to sell a particular investment. Again, you want to be very aware of that, because that's a form of affinity fraud. They're using their connections within that group or community to try to, again, just create legitimacy, and then also try to leverage that to sell their own products on you. Okay, advanced fee fraud, that's where the scammers ask investors to pay a fee up front to receive their dividends or proceeds or their money back, right? The advance fee payment may be described as a fee, tax, commission, or etc. But the premise is always the same. In able to get your money, you're going to be charged another fee, right? And so this is very common among things like actually any kind of investment scam where they're using like a fake website or fake statements. Once they got you into their grip and you've given them $1,000, $10,000, and then maybe you realize that you're in a scam and you want your money back, they might be, again, trying to charge you fees or taxes or other things they come up with, and able to quote unquote give your money back. And in reality, they're not. They're going to give your money back. What they're really trying to do is extort you for more money. So you want to be very careful of that, especially if they just start asking you for money and able to access your own account or your own money. Precious metal scams. This is a big one that's kind of growing. These types of scams promise safe, quote unquote, safe investments. But the reality is that these fraudsters sell the metals at inflated prices and charge high commissions. There might be other ridiculous fees. These fraudsters usually target older adults and other retirement investors, convincing them to turn over their account savings or retirement accounts. So you want to be very careful. Anytime someone tries to contact you, maybe you see an advertisement on the news or on TV or even through social media saying that it's a terrible time for investments, but to quote unquote put your investment in a safe place, you should put it in some precious metal investment or maybe a precious metal ETF, precious metal portfolio of some sort. You want to be very, very careful because, again, it might be legitimate, it may not. And the other thing is, without doing a lot of research, you may not even know what the risks are, right? Because safe is a very relative term. So please check that out. Please do your research before you roll over your retirement accounts or transfer money to any scammer promising safe investments, right? So let's talk about some red flags and how to protect yourself, right? These are kind of this is the overview. If you need to leave, just remember this, right? the first thing you want to do is obviously do your own research. We usually talk a lot about doing your research, but you want to do your own research. In other words, don't just rely on a single source. We're going to dive deep into each one of these, but doing your own research is kind of that first step to helping yourself understand the investment, as well as being able to identify the red flags, right? Verify credentials. You always want to check and make sure that anyone who is trying to sell you an investment is legitimate, right? Licensed and regulated, has some kind of legitimacy. Beware of these investment claims. We'll talk about that. You want to be aware of any kind of high pressure or urgency tactics that are being used against you. Beware of any kind of unsolicited offers. We'll talk more about that. And then for any kind of scam, you always want to be aware of unusual payment methods, right? So we talk about gift cards, cryptocurrencies, other forms of payment apps, that kind of thing. So we'll dive to each one of these. The first one, again, is doing your own research. So important to protecting yourself from investment fraud and scams. Remember, using a credible source is so important. Big reminder here. I put this up right at the top. Social media influencers may not be qualified to provide investment advice or information. And this, by the way, it's not just social media influencers, but it's also celebrities. Those celebrities trying to push or sell some kind of investment, they're probably not qualified, definitely not licensed maybe, to provide that investment advice or information. And what they're really doing, or what they're probably doing, is trying to pump up a particular investment so that they could sell their own shares at a significant profit. So be very aware of that, right? Things you see on social media are probably not legitimate. And the other thing to consider, right? If someone is trying to sell us something on social media, what you really also want to look at is, when was this published? Because if it was published months ago, the rise of that investment might not be there anymore. But obviously, you want to, again, do your own research. We do have a section on our website called the Investor Center. Please check that out. It's got a lot more information, but you should do that as part of your own research. We have like calculators. We have, again, it's for new investors, but also investors that are more experienced. We have a lot of definitions. We link to a lot of other content and media, which can help you do your research. And then, of course, the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, they actually operate the investor.gov website. It is an amazing website. So much content there, a lot of information. They also publish consumer alerts and news, and also a lot of great stuff. A lot of tools too, investment tools, calculators, that kind of thing. So please check them out. Use multiple unbiased resources. Again, very important to not just go to the first Wikipedia article, or using only one social media post as your point of reference, right? It's important to look at a lot of different resources. Unbiased is important as well, to check out whether it is a company or a product or an investment is legitimate. The Securities Exchange Commission has their EDGAR database. That's a database where you can actually search for investment products and companies that are listed publicly, where you could learn more about the company before you actually try to invest in it. I would warn you against penny stocks. And if you're thinking about it, do what you want with your money. I'm not an investment advisor, but what I would say is use the EDGAR database to check them out first. Learn more about them, right? Okay, and then of course, get help from licensed professionals, right? FINRA has their broker check. If you're going to be talking to an investment advisor or a broker, check them out. Make sure that they're licensed up to date. They don't have any kind of enforcement actions against them. So check out their website. Make sure your investment advisor, especially if someone just calls you or knocking on your door, posing as a particular investment advisor, use FINRA's broker check to make sure they're legitimate, right? Okay. The next step, and again, this is part of your doing your own research, is verifying credentials. You can learn about an investment professional's background, registration status, and more at the SEC's Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website. It's a mouthful. Uh, it's where you, again, another place where you could check out your investment advisor, whether you're thinking about hiring them or maybe someone is contacting you. Check out their information. Again, you want to make sure that their registration status is good and up to date, and you can learn more about their different backgrounds, right? Again, we talked about the Edgar database, and then we also talked about FINRA's broker check. A lot of great places for you to verify the legitimacy of someone. Again, if they're trying to sell you some kind of investment, they're giving you a call, you don't know who they are, you don't know who they represent, and they're trying to sell a particular product. Great place to verify credentials first. So the next thing you want to do is you want to be aware of investment claims, right? These are the big red flags. Claims of no risk or risk-free investments. There is no such thing as a no risk or a risk-free investment. All investments carry a level of risk. It could be very, very low, but there's no such thing as no risk or risk-free, right? Even CDs or certificate deposits who are insured by the FDIC, those still have a risk to them, right? So there's no such thing as a risk-free investment. And if someone is giving you that, telling you about that, it's a big, big red flag. Guaranteed returns, right? If someone is guaranteeing you a return on your money, that is a big red flag, and that goes back to risk-free. There is no such thing as a guaranteed return, right? Returns could be very small, they could be very big, but the reality is there is no such thing as you're always going to get return. There is a possibility that you may not get anything. There's a possibility that you might lose your money altogether, right? And that's all part of the investment game. If someone's promising you a guaranteed return, big, big red flag. Promises of significant returns, right, in a short amount of time. Again, another big red flag, usually associated with like a Ponzi scheme, right, or other kinds of scams. They're really just trying to get your money, right? They're making all sorts of promises to try to get your money. We have limited time opportunities, offers only available to you. That's a big red flag, because if it's a great investment, wouldn't you want everyone to get an opportunity to invest as well? So that's a big red flag here. Legitimacy through their own sources and research. Again, very often scammers, fraudsters will send you links, send you articles, that kind of a thing. They want you to quote unquote do your research, but they want you to use their links, to use their affiliations. And again, they're using all this information to try to convince you. You need to take one step back and do your own research. This is another one, claims of inside knowledge or insider information. Big, big red flag here, right? If someone's calling you, knocking on your door, saying, hey, I have insider information from my uncle's doctor's sister who knows someone within this company, it's going to blow up in a minute. That's a big red flag. And you should just walk away from that, right? Or at the very minimum, do your research to make sure the information is legitimate. Okay. Another tactic is high pressure and urgency. These tactics are designed by scammers to bypass your rational thinking, right? They want a forced, a quick emotional decision before you can verify or do your own research. You want to be aware of pressure to act fast. You also want to be aware of scammers using what's known as FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. They might say things like, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, a limited time opportunity, that kind of thing. Again, they're trying to make you go fast. They may also threaten you. They might lie and use other imposter tactics, right? They might say something like, I'm part of the brokerage that you're investing in already. Or they may say things like, if you miss out on this, you're never going to be able to make money, right? All sorts of threats and lies. So be very careful of that. Again, we talk about scammers trying to get you what we call tunnel vision, right? They create that sense of urgency. And when you're in that tunnel vision, you're going to miss out on the red flags that you normally would have seen. And then unsolicited offers. Rarely will a legitimate a very successful organization or professional cold call you to invest in an investment opportunity. Be very especially careful if you receive direct messages from someone you don't know. If you receive an unsolicited pitch to invest in a company, digital asset, or other financial portfolio, right? Someone you don't know and they're just trying to sell you something. This should set off big red flags. Be careful if you can't find current financial information about the investment from independent sources, right? So you're looking into it, can't find anything else. That's a big red flag. Be careful if someone recommends foreign or offshore investments. If you put money in those types of investments, again, and if you don't have any legitimate contact, you're basically giving them money outside the United States, and it's going to be nearly impossible to recover that, right? So the reality is, again, legitimate and very successful companies are not going to contact you in the just cold call you, right? Trying to get you to invest. They may, legitimate organizations may want your investment, but they're not going to individually call individuals. So be careful about that. And then the other one, and comes from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, unusual payment methods, right? The use of social media as this is a direct quote from them, one of the reports actually. The use of social media as a contact method and the use of cryptocurrency payment apps and bank transfers as a payment method have increased across the top 5 scam categories, which includes investment scams. So you want to be aware of anybody soliciting payment for investments using cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin ATMs. If they're asking you to pay for an investment with gift cards or using a payment app, doing bank transfers or even credit cards, all those are big, big red flags, right? Legitimate investment organizations will have ways where you can connect your payment, like your banking institution, or ways that you can send them money that can be reversed, right? That can be stopped. All of these have a very difficult time for you to, again, try to get your money back. So be very careful of any kind of unusual payment methods. I've never heard of anyone buying stocks with gift cards or even credit cards. That's kind of a big red flag. So again, these are things that should raise your suspicion. Okay, and then also very important, you want to always report investment scams, whether it's an email you get, whether it is someone knocking at your door, giving you a phone call, someone sending you a direct message, right, from social media or something. Send it to us, right? So as a state regulator, the DFPI, we have a link where you can submit any kind of investment scams that are being solicited to you. There's a lot of other federal organizations, a lot of other places where you can also submit your reports. So we have the CFTC, which is the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. They have a complaint line. The FBI has their IC3.gov, which is their Internet Crime Complaint Center. Then you have the FTC, their reportfraud.ftc.gov. It's a great website where you can actually report any types of frauds and scams. And then, of course, the SEC has their tips. What is it? Tips, complaints, and I want to say it's reports. They have their referrals. That's it. Tips, complaints, referrals. It's a link where you can submit your report of an investment scam to the Securities and Exchange Commission. So lots of places where you can submit your complaints. Again, when you submit your complaints, it helps us, not just as state regulators, but also our federal partners, to coordinate, to see what's happening, and also to try to stop these types of scams from spreading, not just within California, but across the country. Okay, with that, it is Q&A time. Please, again, a reminder, submit your questions through the Q&A. The Zoom's Q&A feature, I'm happy to answer it. I will remind you that this webinar is being recorded, and we will publish the webinar onto the DFPI's YouTube channel. And I will be sending everyone who registered for this webinar a follow-up email, which includes a link to that recorded webinar, and also a link to these slides, which you'll have access to. So let's answer these questions real quick. I'm going to answer one that was just asked. Can you please share the slides, presentation resources? Yes, absolutely. Again, I will be sending a follow-up email with the slides attached. So please share those slides to everyone else who would like them. Why doesn't the California Franchise Tax Board use PIN numbers like the IRS does for tax returns? So for if you were not aware, if you are a victim of identity theft, and actually if you're not a victim, you could actually just go out to the IRS's website. You do need to register and claim your profile, but once you do that, you can actually have the IRS, the internal Federal Internal Revenue Service, they will issue you a PIN number. So when you want to submit your tax when I say your tax, when you submit your tax report, tax return, they will not accept it unless you include your PIN number, right? And for individuals who have been a victim of identity theft, or even if you're afraid to, if you're afraid of identity theft, you're afraid of scammers taking your identity and submitting a fraudulent tax return on your behalf and taking your tax return money, this IRS's PIN number is a way to stop that from happening. So short answer is I'm not sure why the California Franchise Tax Board does not have PIN numbers. That would be a question for them. So it's a great question though, and I'm happy to talk more about it, share that information. Thank you so much for asking. I would love it. That'd be a great thing to have. I have a IRS PIN number and it works great. Next question. What about unlicensed professional service providers that are not licensed, but are much cheaper than licensed professionals? They may still have experience, but no credentials. Okay, it's a great question. So basically what you're asking here is, hey, what about unlicensed professionals that might be providing investment advice or services? They may be cheaper than the professionals, and they may have experience of some sort. Listen, you are welcome to use anyone you want as your investment advisor, or and again, this is not financial or legal advice, but when you have someone that is licensed and regulated and they're in good standing, right? They are incentivized to, again, continue that license, right? To have a good current license. And they may be more expensive, but that's a level of security, right? If you know someone very, very well, and you feel comfortable, even if they're unlicensed, you feel comfortable with giving them their money to invest for you, go for it, right? But I think having a licensed professional as someone who is managing your money is going to give you that sense of security. And also, if something happens, their information, their personal information, is all within a system, and you will have the assistance of someone like us, right? So the DFPI, we license brokers, dealers, investment advisors. If one of our licensees is not helping you, if they're causing problems, if they are committing financial crimes, you don't have to, you could pursue them personally, but the DF, if you report it to us and they're our licensees, we will go after them, right? And we will try to get you restitutions. And that's the power of having someone who's licensed. And regulated. But great question. I totally understand, especially with money. I have a broker I use, and they charge, I would say, a moderate amount of money. But at the end of the day, I know that they're licensed. I know that they're part of a brokerage that is very reputable, and that if something happens, that brokerage is going to make me whole. And that makes me sleep well at night. But that's me. But thank you. That's a great question, though. Two-part question. How to get your money back from a gift card scam? Do I go through the gift card company, or does the bank address the issue? Just a great question. So it's very, very, and I sigh because I hear so much. When a scammer takes your gift card information, it is almost impossible to get your money back. Now, I have heard that it can be done. And in fact, one consumer came up to me and told me that they were able to stop it, but only because they contacted the gift card company like no more than 30 minutes after, right? So what happened is he was caught up in a scam where they were posing as his grandson, and he went out, he bought a bunch of Walmart gift cards, and then he gave him the gift card information, and then the red flag started going off in his head. He called his son directly and said and asked about their grandson. His grandson was perfectly fine, and so he called the gift card company, which is Walmart. He called the number on the back of the card immediately, and they were able to freeze the gift card so that if anyone tried to access that value out of the gift card, they couldn't do it. So he was successful, but he did it within 30 minutes, right? So how do you get your money back from a gift card scam? You have to do it nearly immediately, and you have to do it with the phone number on the back of your gift card. Once that scammer takes that gift card value out, it's just nearly impossible to stop, to get that money back. It's just so difficult. So great question. I do get that question a lot, not just in this workshop, but many other workshops. And I hope I was able to inform you there. A public notary posed as a tax professional in order to steal my taxes. Oh my goodness. How do I contact to report him? Okay. A couple different things here. The first thing you want to do, if they stole your personal information for tax purposes, you want to contact the IRS and let them know, hey, don't accept any, you want to get that IRS PIN number as well, but you also want to contact the IRS and let them know, hey, I've been a victim of an identity theft. Someone stole my identity or information, and they may try to file taxes on my behalf. Please do not accept it, right? That's kind of the first step you want to take. The next step, because they've basically stolen your taxes and probably a lot of your personal information, you want to go to identitytheft.gov. It's a website hosted by the Federal Trade Commission. It's gonna prompt you through a bunch of little steps that you could take. There's going to be a lot of steps because with your tax information, there's so much personal and financial information involved. So identity theft, I'm going to put this in chat. Identitytheft.gov. Go start there, and hopefully it's going to give you a lot of steps that you need to take. Read carefully, go through each one, and hopefully it'll help protect your identity as well as stop this particular person. In terms of a public notary, what you do want to do, again, locally, you want to contact local authorities because you're probably not the only victim, right? I'm sure this public notary is doing this with other individuals. Contact local authorities. They can do an investigation. They probably have a local, where I live, my local law enforcement has a financial crimes unit, and this is the exact thing they look into. Because they know that you're probably not the only victim, and so the local law enforcement is going to start their investigation, and they may loop in individuals like us, the state authorities, so probably the Franchise Tax Board, or even the federal authorities like the IRS get involved. So I'm sorry to hear about that happen, Q, but thank you for asking, and I hope you're able to recover. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. My neighbor was just scammed out of $20,000, but the bank was able to place a stop on the bank transfer. Thank you. Unfortunately, he also sent pictures of his driver's license, his social security card, his Medicare. Yeah. Is there something we can do to help him? Who should we notify? Okay. What I just put into the chat is a great place to start. Have your neighbor go to identitytheft.gov. Again, website hosted by the Federal Trade Commission. And there's going to be a lot of little steps because it's going to ask you, hey, what got stolen? What information was taken? Driver's license, social security card, Medicare card, anything else will be listed, and you just got to checkbox it, and then it's going to tell you what you should do, right? So your driver's license, you may have to go, not you, but your neighbor may need to inform the DMV. They may need to issue him a new driver's license card that has a different driver's license number, right? Social security card, same thing. So again, just go through the whole list, have him go through the whole prompt, and it'll give him kind of step-by-step suggestions on what he can do to, again, protect his identity. One big thing also is if your neighbor hasn't done this yet, put a credit freeze in place. What is a credit freeze? What does it do? You have to go to each of the credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They have your neighbor's credit profile with a driver's license, social security number, and other personal information. A scammer or identity theft can actually take out loans or a line of credit or open up a new credit card in your neighbor's name. But if your neighbor goes to each one of those credit bureaus and they have to claim their credit profile, but then they put a credit freeze on their credit. They could still use their debit card and credit card just normally, right? No problems. But no one, not even your neighbor, will be able to open up a new line of credit or a credit card or a new car loan. They will not be able to do it unless they unfreeze the credit. So again, consider getting a credit freeze. It actually doesn't take that long to do. The only thing is you got to go to each credit bureau. But once you do that, you put a credit freeze in place, takes 10 minutes. And then if you ever need to unfreeze your credit, it takes like 5 minutes. And then you could just refreeze your credit, right? It's a great way to stop someone from using all your personal information to do things like open up loans, get money in your name, destroy your credit. So thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay. Here's another question. If the following is the DFPI mission, why can't they get the Franchise Tax Board to accept PINs? So it's a good question. Promoting innovation, protecting consumers. Our jurisdiction falls within what do you call it? Our jurisdiction falls within financial products, services, and professionals, right? So think of it like banks, credit unions, investment brokerage, mortgage providers, payday lenders. Those financial products, services, and professionals, we license and we regulate. The Franchise Tax Board regulates tax collection, right? Not just on individuals, but also businesses and etc. They are another California department. And I would love to go to them and say, hey, can you please issue PIN numbers? Unfortunately, that is their own prerogative, right? I would suggest that if you're very passionate about having PIN numbers issued by the FTB, the Franchise Act Board, go to your local legislator, right? Could be a local assembly member, could be your local California state senator, and say, hey, I think you should pass a law to have the California Franchise Tax Board offer PIN numbers to file taxes, right? If it becomes a law, then the FTB would follow it. But unfortunately, we protect consumers through, again, licensing and regulating financial products and professionals. And then, of course, providing information like this. But I totally understand. It's a matter of, it's one of those things, the bureaucracy of the system, where we cannot overreach where we legislatively, where the law does not allow us, right? Thank you, though. It's a great question. Okay, and a reminder, if you have any other questions, please feel free to submit it. We do have some time, and that gives me the chance, hold on a second, to answer some of these questions that were emailed to me. And this is a very long one. I'm going to talk about this because it's a little bit off the wall. I was contacted via email through what I thought to be an Amazon business. I was asked about investing into it. I was informed through video chats, through long corresponding emails. I was asked to sign a contract and send an amount of money that was sufficient for entry level. I was never sure about signing the contract, but I received it, and I never responded, but to decline the offer. Good. My fears were legitimately okay. Okay, so question is, how do I know if this was a legitimate offer? This is the thing, and I've heard about this too. And I've heard horror stories, and I've heard things that are legitimate. There are certain Amazon businesses that are selling their business, right? Someone maybe built their own Amazon business and they don't want to do it anymore. They'll sell it, right? And it can be a legitimate investment, quote unquote, like transaction. It can be. I would be very, very skeptical, right? And because I've heard a lot of horror stories where someone looks like it might be a cold call, someone offering to sell an Amazon business, or maybe an Amazon business starter kit. And they talk about, hey, we'll do all the work for you, right? We'll set up all the shipping and inventory control. We'll do all this. All you need to do is give us the startup money. I would be very, very skeptical, which this particular individual was. How do you determine legitimacy? honestly, it's very, very difficult to determine the legitimacy of that organization. Um, yeah, I'm just too skeptical. What I would do is I would probably talk to Amazon first and say, hey, have you heard about this? Is this a legitimate thing? The other thing, and again, this is not a guarantee of any kind of, anything that it would work out or not. I would ask this individual who is selling Amazon business kits, looks like, hey, obviously you've been doing this for a while. Give me referrals, right? I'm sure you have very happy Amazon business owners that you were able to set up. Let me talk to them, right? Let me verify some information. What testimonials do you have? And I would cross-check that with their own Amazon business. So for example, if this was a legitimate Amazon investment opportunity, they would say, of course, here are links to some Amazon businesses, and here are the owners of those businesses, right? Please contact them and get testimonials. I'm sure they'll tell you how happy they are with our services. And maybe that's kind of, you got to do a little more digging to make sure. That's kind of the only thing that I can think of that can probably help you do more research and maybe try to determine legitimacy. But also, this is the thing: anyone can claim to be anything. So this is a great question, and I totally understand. I've heard about this type of scam before, and thank you for sending in the question. Here's another question that just came in. How do I stop all the phone calls or voice messages saying that I'm calling to process your $35,000 loan? So there's not much you can do except for most smartphones nowadays, when you get a phone call, it will most smartphones will give you the ability to report that call as a scam or phishing attempt of some sort. That will help. It takes time because you just have to keep reporting those calls. And eventually what will happen is your smartphone will figure out who's legit, who's not, right? But it takes time, right? Could take a month, could take a year. But you just keep doing it consistently so that your phone will eventually kind of figure it out. The other thing is there's really not much. You're actually doing the right thing. If you're getting a call from a number you don't recognize and they leave a voicemail about calling to process your $35,000 loan, because I get these calls too, just delete it, right? You know it's a scam. It's okay. It went to voicemail, and you can take your time to listen to it and just delete it. Yeah, the best thing you could do is just report it and hopefully have your phone provider eventually filter out those calls. There's also, by the way, there's also apps that you can install. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay for. Again, do your research, make sure those apps will work for you before you start paying them. But there are apps that will help screen those calls for you, but sometimes they'll leave a voicemail anyways. But hopefully that helps. Great question. Thank you so much for asking. I get this question a lot too, by the way. Okay. I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to answer these two more questions that I got from an email, and then we'll kind of wrap up. Which, by the way, let's go ahead and just talk about some things real quickly, and then I'll answer these questions. The DFPI, we need your help. If the DFPI has helped you or your family or friends in any kind of way, we want to hear from you, right? Your experience is important. We want to let others know how we can help them, right? Basically, we want your testimony to verify our legitimacy to other people who might be thinking about coming to our webinars or workshops or, submitting their complaints to us. You can submit your story to us. Email us at outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Again, we want to know how we helped you, and then we want to share this information with others so that they can see that it works. And also, as a final reminder, this month, in about a week, it's next Thursday, we have our Financial Literacy Month Resource Fair webinar. We bring in a lot of professionals with a lot of financial and also other services backgrounds to share their resources for you. This year's theme is Spring Cleaning Your Finances. Again, it's next Thursday at noon. You can register for this webinar with that link. We also have our newsletter and then our YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to so that you can always get the latest information when we publish it. Okay, Last two questions. Um, uh, I've been sent a couple of emails with links to fake websites. How do you spot a fake website? It's very difficult. The first thing you should always look at is the link right at the top in your address bar. Look at the link. Um, Sometimes those links go to websites that are outside the US, right? So .ru is a Russian website, right? So look at the links. If it's a bunch of scrambled letters and numbers, that's a big red flag, right? It should be a legitimate link sometimes in the United States. That doesn't always mean that's legit, but that's kind of your first red flag. And then besides that, there's a it's almost impossible. It's very difficult to verify the authenticity of a website. But do a lot more research, right? There's like the Wayback Machine, also known as the Internet. What is it? Um, there's a website where you can look at the history of a website and see if it's been there for a long time, right? There's also the Whois. You could go just Google it. Whois is a register. The website is registered somewhere. Should have some information and giving you a little more information. So besides that, again, you should check out other websites that might be verifying that website if it's legitimate, right? Good question. What are recovery scams? Okay, this is a good one here. Statistics show that individuals who have been scammed are more likely to be scammed again, right? And that's very counterintuitive. You would think that if someone got scammed, they would be more, what do you call it, more wary of other scams happening. But in fact, it's actually the reverse. Individuals who become scammed or become a victim of identity theft is more likely to become a victim again. And this is because the scammers have your information. They know what makes you motivated, right? So if they were able to scam you the first time, they know what triggered you, what made you give the money to them. So they're going to turn around and do what's called a recovery scam. What is a recovery scam? A recovery scam is where the scammers pose as legitimate organizations or maybe other businesses saying that we can recover your money, right? We know you lost $20,000 in an investment scam. Our company specializes, the scammers will say, our company specializes in getting your money back. If you give us $1,000, we will get your money back for you guaranteed, right? Big red flag. There's no such thing as a guarantee. Also, you need to do your research and make sure if that organization is legitimate, right? So that's what a recovery scam is. Sometimes it's just throwing more money at a problem. And that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to sell you on stuff, try to get you to try to recover that money. And those are highly unlikely to succeed. Okay, one more question that came through. If you have a presenter, on legit investment program like a radio TV broadcast, and they are asked to recommend an investment, is it likely that they really think it's a good investment, or do they not have much? Do they have too much of it and are hoping to get rid of it? Okay, so you're talking about like a pump and dump in a way. This is the thing: do your research, right? I cannot say if a person is legitimate or not, whether they're on TV, whether they're on YouTube, whether they're on TikTok or other social media platforms. I cannot say if they're legitimate or not. It is possible that they are doing a pump and dump, right? They're saying, "Oh, this investment is great. You need to buy it right now." But in fact, what they're doing, they're doing a pump and dump. They're trying to get the price really high, and then they're going to sell it once it's really high, and then the value will drop, and you'll have nothing, right? That's a pump and dump. It's possible they may be legitimate, but the reality is, we want you to do your own research. If you see something, maybe on social media, it piques your interest, then you do your research into it and see if it is legitimate, right? I will give you my own personal story here. I'm related to someone who gave me a call. They know I do this, and they said, "Hey, my coworker's doctor is investing in a particular stock. They want me to give them $5,000 to get invested as well. Is it a good idea?" I was like, "Okay, sounds shady from the start." The first thing you need to do is give me the investment they're trying to get into. He gave me the information. I did a very quick look. It's a penny stock. on a medical company that is in clinical trials right now, the big red flag is a penny stock. What is a penny stock? That means that the company's value literally is in the pennies. And I told my relative, hey, you need to be very careful here. Don't give them, you can invest, but I would not invest my mortgage, right? I would not invest anything that I'm not willing to lose. It's a penny stock. So if you spend $10 and you lose it all, oh well, right? Skip breakfast for one day, you're okay. But don't put your mortgage payment, don't put your car payment, don't put your student loan payment trying to invest in this thing, trying to, make sure it passes clinical trials. That's a big, big red flag, right? So do your research. I can only try to help you, but at the end of the day, it's your financial decision. But great question. Thank you so much for asking that. Okay. We are coming up at the time. Again, please register for this webinar if you can. I'll be there hosting a panel, and we'll be talking about a lot of different topics. With that, I do want to say thank you, and a big, big reminder that I will be sending out a follow-up email with a copy of these slides and a link to the webinar recording. With that, please, thank you for attending the webinar. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you so much. Goodbye.